This is for your narrative essays or stories, and it's going to be important to do this before your final draft gets turned in. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and I'm going to walk you through some things. So first thing is we want to discuss first some of the rules of formatting dialogue or writing out dialogue, or for your story. I'm going to direct you to a website, and we're just going to go over this briefly, but it's called Rules for Formatting Dialogue. The first thing is put the spoken words with double quotation marks. Notice that right there. Double quotation marks. And they go, and this one goes after the period. Another rule is use dialogue tags. He said, she said. Those really help someone follow your story and not get confused with who's saying what. Make sure that it stays outside the quotes and gets separated by a comma. So for example, Sam said, comma. All right, many times students forget to put the comma. They just say Sam said. You can do that on the front end like this one, or you can go to the backside of the statement and end it that way. In any case, you're going to need a comma, and this is a complete statement. Notice here that Bill says two things, but we know it's Bill just by doing the first part. So you don't have to say said Bill twice on this line. But notice that they also are two separate people. So it's easy to see and understand. Imagine if this was all just put together as one long text message or sentence. It'd be tough. Next rule is, it says here, when dialogue ends in a question or exclamation mark, tags that follow start in the lower case. Meaning, if this was, don't be a sissy, exclamation mark, instead of a comma, you still have to have said Bill with a lowercase s. The next thing is, well, there's their example right there. So the next thing is actions that occur before or after the dialogue go in a separate sentence. For example, if Cindy screamed and then spoke, this is how you would write it. Okay. On the other hand, if she screamed out the words, use a comma instead of a period, so it's part of the same sentence. Now that's kind of confusing, right? Well, basically here, she didn't say that. Someone else might have said that. But if we know who's saying it and there's an action beforehand, use a comma. So another example would be, the man ran up to the car, comma, what are you doing here? So we know the man was the one speaking. Let's see, punctuation goes inside the quotes. Right here is punctuation. Here's another one. They go inside the quotes. Okay. And do not add a comma or any other punctuation if you're going to end with a ... So this is called an ellipsis. If you have to quote something within the dialogue, use single quotation marks. So let's say someone says something about someone else saying something, like he's telling you what she said, then you're having a statement inside of a statement. And what you'll need to do is use single quotation marks. Bill laughed and pointed at him. This is Bill speaking. When that ghost jumped out and said, boo, you screamed like a girl. Well, so what does that mean? That Bill is saying what he heard someone else say, or a ghost say. Right? So statements inside of statements get a single quote. This is a big one. Start a new paragraph every time you change speakers. This is the most common thing that I see students needing to do is they have one giant page or paragraph of several different people talking. You need to separate the lines out, just like you would see in a text thread. You know, there's separate lines. So what we have here is if the person speaking has things they're doing while they're speaking, then you can keep that in that same line. But once we have a different person speaking, we've got to do a separate line. Okay, and you indent just like you would indent with paragraphs. Okay, so these are two different people speaking. This is a conversation. You need to do this for your, especially for your narratives where you and someone else is speaking. That's very important. Let's see. Notice that you didn't have he said, she said with every line either. So that's fine. Once you started off with a person's name and what they said, and you mentioned the other person, then you can just kind of alternate and rotate without having he said, she said, he said, she said through the whole thing. Let's see. Let's say you wanted to make an action in between what someone says because it really matters. So, for example, I know. He lowered his voice to whisper what you said. You see? So this another one could be throw me the ball in quotation marks, comma, and then as he was running down the field, comma, let me catch it, quotation mark, two statements with action in between. So we have a really long paragraph here of discussion, and you can put opening quotation marks at the beginning of each paragraph. And this is important because you have to have closing quotation marks at the very end. All right, so that's what we need to do for formatting dialogue. Now, this doesn't mean that your dialogue is going to be super exciting. There's another way to write like that, and that's really more of a style. And I don't mean exciting in general. I mean, dialogue could be informative, it can be depressing, it can be exciting, it can be scary or mysterious. But the point is, these are just rules for like how you, where you put the comma, where you put the quotation marks, how you set up the lines that makes it easy to follow your story. So for now, what I'd like us to do, if you have a moment, as I'd like us to look at a dialogue example here. All right. Now, let's make this an example of a narrative first draft. This person has written up a conversation they've had, but it's not formatted according to MLA. It's not correct. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to work through this, and you're going to see it in practice. Okay. So I look at my phone, and it's my manager, Mike, calling. I hadn't talked to him 3 months since COVID shut down our restaurant. I answer the phone. Hey, I answered. Okay, so here we are. What can we do is, remember the rule is to have a separate line for each person speaking. So we're going to do this. I'm going to indent, remember that. Now, my manager, hey, John. Okay, so what's going on here? We have another person talking. Indent. Okay. Now I haven't done this double spaced. That might actually help. So let's go back to that because that would help. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. Make sure that's double spaced. It's very important. Okay. All right. And okay, so here we are. I answer the phone, so hey, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, right? Look, there's a little typo here. My manager said, there we are, that's better. Where is John? Where's the manager stop speaking? Hey, John, guess what? You're coming back to work. Guess what? Guess what? I laughed nervously. Yay. Oh, so that's a different line. That's the other speaker. So they get a separate line, right? What's missing here? The end quotation marks. Whenever someone's done saying something. There we go. I laughed nervously. Always make these capital. And remember the rule is you got to have a comma right there. So yay, great. So when do we start? Remember your punctuation? You need a question mark. Okay. All right, this is done. So then he explains. So we are in a separate line here. Okay. This is all just thoughts of the writer. Okay, after a couple of minutes, like questions like, have you been? So these are actually them remembering what the person said. Remember, we need question marks. Okay, ending the quote marks. I'm assuming these are the beginning of a question, so you want to have the beginning of a sentence there. Okay. All right. So this also, this narrative was inspired by one of the students I've been helping. I changed the names and some of the details, but essentially it's, you know, a story related to COVID. And that's pretty much it for the speaking part. No, there's more. He goes. Well, I'm assuming she means he said. So let's see here. That's the actual part of speaking. Well, now it's time to choose your shift. And that's the end of the speaking. So we're going to do a close, and then we're going to separate the line. Okay. Okay. He says, all right. I'm going to change that to said. And that's the end of that sentence. All right. The next speaking part is right here. I said, remember to use your comma, quote marks, use your capital. And this is a short, quick conversation. So again, you've got to make quick lines here. Remember to start, as you can see, Now, who says, okay, well, hopefully I can get it's, all right, so it's the person getting the call, right? So we got to do that. Okay. Now, you don't have to have this, I guess, because we already know there's a different speaker, right? Okay. We're almost done here. Separating these speaking parts. We don't need that because we know it's an exchange between two. This is a question mark. Make sure we close our comments with quotation marks. All right, and that's it. We did it, or I did it, but hopefully you saw how I did it. Remember, the goal in tutoring is that I show you how to do something so that you can do it yourself, or at least practice till you get confident. You can always come back to me if you have questions or you want me to kind of look over the work you've done and the changes you've made and the updates you've made. It's a process. So writing is like art. You're just shaping. You start something off real rough and you start to fine tune things. We had a nice huge piece of discussion that was all blocked together as one paragraph, and what we did is we started to shape it into lines, and that's a process. You may be able to do this on your own, but it takes practice as well, on just practicing writing different essays. It really helps. So hopefully that was helpful to you. And if you need anything else, you know where to reach me. The English Center on Canvas. The links are all there. You can go to sdcity.edu, find the English Center on there, and you can get links as well to a Zoom session or to submit your paper.